Hi guys, Calvin here. I wanted to share a quick story with you. I don't know how many of you remember Aesop's fables, but one of my favorite Aesop fables was called The Peasant and the Eagle. This story is all about this peasant who, after a long day's toil, decided he needed to gather all his worldly possessions into this tiny little bag and head back into town for rest. So as he trundled across the path, he stumbled across this eagle snared in a hunter's trap. His final act of compassion for that day was to release this eagle so that it could soar back to his freedom. Anyway, eventually he found himself back in the town, plonked his bag down next to this giant wall, rested his back on the wall, and nodded off for some rest. Eventually, the eagle swoops back down, grabs his little bag, and flies off with it. Of course, he jumps up. Hey, 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 my bag, my bag. And he makes chase through the town. He follows this eagle through the streets of this little town until he eventually comes to a corner. And as he turns around and he looks, the eagle suddenly drops his bag. He picked up this bag in frustration. Oh, you stupid eagle. And he's calling it all these names. Now he makes his way back to the wall. And guess what? When he gets there, there is no wall. The wall had completely fallen and smashed into hundreds of little pieces. And what he realized then was that the eagle was actually saving his life. Now, what Aesop was doing in that story, I think the moral was one good turn deserves another. But I see that story in another way. I see this as one about our lens of perception. How one event can be interpreted in multiple ways. Consider in your life what events have taken place or that are taking place as you form the narrative of your story. Whether this experience took something from you or whether it was a gift. Whether it was something that you lost or whether it was actually a renewed lease of life that you'd been given. And the truth is, the only thing that determines that is your lens of perception.